Welcome to the Exchange Living Podcast. I'm Michael Tenney, your host, and this podcast is all about real stories of transformation, what it means to exchange our life for Christ's. On this podcast, we explore what it looks like to walk in that exchanged life every day. Hey, welcome to the Exchange Living Podcast. I'm Michael Tenney, your host. I'm really glad you clicked that button today. Hey, we're in for a treat today. We have a guest with us, Rebecca Watkins, and I'll go ahead and spill the beans a little bit. Rebecca and I worked together for how many years?
19.
19 years, almost 20. So that's like doing hard labor when you got to work with Michael Tenney. So we worked together at Henry Baptist Church in McDonough, which is the church that hosts this podcast. And one of the staff members there donates extra time off the clock, so to speak, to do the recording and the videoing and the editing and the publishing and everything. So anyway, just a quick little mention of Henry Baptist and the influence that they've had on a lot of lives over the years, and then also on my life and Rebecca's life also. So welcome to the Exchange Living Podcast. Are you glad to be here?
I am a little nervous, but I'm glad to be here.
I think most people that sit in that seat are nervous, and that's totally normal. There's a lot of light in this room.
Yes,
today.
there is.
Yeah. So we were just kind of talking about how many years we worked together, and I really couldn't remember, but it was almost 20 years, 19 years. 19. Serving the Lord at Henry. And I remember when there was a staff member here named Robert. We were trying to hire someone to do the job that you did, and he mentioned you, and I'm like, I think I've heard of her dad. Yeah, and that was my story too. Everybody knew that
Everybody knew my dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up under that shadow too. It was a good shadow to be under, but it was a shadow that sometimes caused them to overlook me, and maybe you felt the same way. So we always start at the beginning. You know, what was life like for you growing up as a little girl?
It was great. I grew up in a Christian home. Both my parents worked. My dad was a pastor. My mom worked in the Christian school. I had an older sibling who got married when I was 9. So basically, I grew up by myself as an only child. Went to Christian school, went to Christian college, graduated, started working. Yeah.
So you were growing up as an only child, but also baby of the family. So you got a double whammy.
Definitely baby. Yes.
Right. And so your dad served in ministry for a lot of years. Do you know how many years he was?
It was I can't remember my dad not being in ministry until he got older.
Yeah.
So he was the assistant pastor at a church in Alabama. We moved to Georgia when I was 3, and he was an assistant pastor at that church all the way until I graduated high school.
Most of his life. I asked him one time how long he was assistant pastor at a church I knew he served at, and he said 16 years. I'm like, wow, I'm more than that here at Henry. I'm trying to be. He did more than 16 years than I did in 24 years and 6 months, I think, because he's still a local legend for people that knew about his service and all. So what a good man. And your mom was, I didn't know her as well, but she was a big personality.
She was feisty. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good word. I wouldn't have said that, but now that you said it, I agree with you. Yeah, she was very feisty, and you knew she was in the room. She didn't just sneak in the room.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had good parents and dad in ministry. So do you remember living in Alabama, or did you grow up mostly here?
I don't. I don't have any memories of Alabama. But
you were there long enough to be an Alabama fan, right?
Yes. Well, it was family tradition. So yes.
So it wasn't just you. Yeah, I gotcha. So do you remember the moving to Georgia?
I don't remember much about it, but I do remember we went back to visit that church periodically when we would go see family in Alabama. Yeah. So my dad still had those connections for a lot of years.
So that means your sister grew up in Alabama, got married, and then you moved to Georgia, so y'all grew up completely different.
Yes, we moved here. My sister did her senior year of high school here.
Okay. And
then went to college and got married and moved out. So we weren't together for very long.
Yeah. So you went to a Christian school all the way through 12th grade?
K-5 through 12th grade.
Then you went off to a Christian university?
I did, yes.
And you got your degree?
I did. I have a business degree.
And then you
Believe
got
it or not.
busy working?
I did.
And then you've been working ever since?
Yes. How is that possible? But yes.
So what was it like living in a pastor's home growing up?
It's different. People don't realize you live in a fishbowl, basically, and eyes are always on you. And my mom somehow always knew things that I did before I ever got home.
Oh, like she knew you had
She
done wrong?
knew I had misbehaved or I had done something I wasn't supposed to do that she had told me not to do. She always seemed to know everything.
Yeah.
And I never could figure out how she knew everything.
To this day, you don't know?
To this day, I don't know who told on me, but she always knew.
She had a special track with the Lord, or is either small town living?
Yeah, small town, yeah. So, yeah, it was definitely different. And I didn't appreciate it at the time.
Yeah. Each of my kids have expressed to me the difficulty of being in a pastor's home because they feel like everybody's watching them and expect more out of them than other people.
Yeah, you're put up on a higher plane, I would say. But we're human, and people forget that.
Yeah. I would just say pastors are human too, for that record, and they're no more perfect than their kids.
Right, exactly.
And,
I mean,
your dad might have been the perfect man. He seemed to be from the outside, but I never lived with him.
Yeah.
So how did you handle that pressure of knowing that, eyes are on you and you got the weight of your parents' reputation on your back?
For me, it got to be it wasn't worth it to do what my peers did or try to misbehave and break the rules. It just wasn't worth my parents' disappointment in me, because for me, that was the hardest part.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, that the thing that kept me between the lines was not wanting to disappoint my dad and my parents. Yeah, that's good. You made it easy on them at that point.
Yes. Well, I mean, I tell people today my mom would give me the death eye, and I knew at that point it was gonna be bad when I got home.
I've heard of the stink eye, I've heard of the wrinkled eyebrows,
No,
but
it was
the death.
I was like, this is gonna be bad when I get home. And after, it just wasn't, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. So you were exposed to the gospel through all of your Christian school years and your college years, right?
Yes.
And then living in a pastor's home.
All my life.
So can you talk about your salvation here? And
I can't. So it was prior to actually being saved as an adult. I would say my salvation story was when I was 5 in kindergarten. And my teacher did a lesson on heaven and hell.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to heaven. So we said a prayer.
Yeah.
And my whole life, I thought that was my salvation story.
Yeah. So you referred to that for a long time.
I did. Every time I ever doubted, every time I ever questioned, I always went back to that moment and convinced myself that I was saved.
So 5 is pretty young.
Yes, to understand, yes.
I'm not saying you were or you weren't. it does seem very young to understand the gospel and the need of salvation. So if that wasn't it happened later in life then.
Yes. I won't say my age, but yes, I was an adult.
Okay. Were there things in your life that led up to that exposure of your heart to yourself that you're not saved? Like what happened that made you realize, hey, I don't really know the Lord?
Well, most people do know my story and know that both my parents have passed and my sister. Yeah. But there was just a certain period of time where things just started to go downhill, everything in my life.
Yeah.
And it was a really rough weekend, that weekend. And I would question God about, why did you do this? Why did you take my family from me? Yeah. And why did you leave me here? And like, who's going to take their place? Like, what am I still doing here?
Yeah.
And I came to Sunday school that Sunday. I can't remember what we were talking about, but I do remember my precious friend Casey saying, I don't know how somebody lives without people praying for them daily.
Yeah.
And that for me was a punch in the gut.
That hit hard.
I somehow made it through the service. I don't know how, but I got home and I started pacing. Like, why did you do this? I just don't understand. Why did you do this?
Yeah.
Who's going to take their place? And it was from one moment to the next. He said, Rebecca, I've been here all along. Oh. And I broke at that moment, and I knew that I was not saved.
Wow. So the point that this happened was after you lost your mom, your sister, and your dad?
Yes.
Wow. And so when he spoke to you, you didn't hear his voice with your ears, did you? You just had a thought in your mind.
It just was that clear in my mind.
But you knew
that I knew, yes.
Dr. Henry Blackaby says, when God speaks, you know it's him.
Yes.
Absolutely. And he speaks in our thoughts. People talk about hearing the voice of God, but it's misleading because we don't really hear his voice audibly. we have a thought that he places in our mind, but we have absolute confidence that was not me.
Yes.
That was not the enemy. That was God.
And yes, I knew at that moment exactly who that was.
And when that thought hit you, you described it that you broke.
I broke.
Wow. There are a lot of people who were saved earlier in life that come to brokenness later in their life, but it sounds like by your own testimony, you got them both at the same time. There is a certain amount of brokenness that has to happen for Christ to come in, for salvation to be given to me or to us. But yours sounds like it was the double whammy.
Yes.
You were completely emptied of self at that moment and completely probably filled with the Spirit of God at that moment. That's beautiful. So I interrupted because there's so many beautiful parts to it. I just wanted to point out. So God spoke to you and you broke and you knew you weren't saved. Then what happened after that moment? What did you do?
I just surrendered. Like I felt like I had been running for so long.
Yeah.
And in that moment I surrendered, and all of the grief that I had carried for so long, the doubts about my salvation, it just was gone. Like all this weight was off of me.
Yeah.
And it was a peace like I could never, ever describe.
Yeah. Before that moment when God spoke to you, so you had doubts that had been nagging at you before?
Oh, for years I'd always had doubts. But I'd always went back to that moment when I was 5.
So you just pushed them back. You used that moment to push them back. But they were still there.
Yes, they were always still there.
Did you ever talk about those doubts with anyone, or just you held them inside?
I always held them inside because I never wanted anybody to know that I was struggling with this.
Yeah.
Because I could always convince myself that I was saved.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Can you see when other people are doing the same thing now?
Yes.
You've done this most of your life. You can see it now.
Yeah, I can notice it now.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's now in the situation that you were in, like having those nagging doubts but pushing them down with
don't wait. Please don't wait.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody. Get it settled.
Yeah.
Because I wasted so many years pretending like I was saved.
Yeah. So putting it off until later is not a good thing in your life. You wish now you'd done it earlier.
Yes.
And dealt with it earlier.
But I also know in God's timing, everything is perfect. And that was my moment.
Yeah, sometimes we think we can just choose when we do this.
Right.
But really it was the weight of the circumstances of your life and God's voice at that moment was the breaking point.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful story, how God watched you. And your testimony was that he's like, Rebecca, I've been here the whole time. Are those the words that he said to you?
That's exactly what he said to me.
Can you use a word to describe how that made you feel?
Loved.
Know you felt loved.
I felt loved.
So if I said to you, Rebecca, God doesn't really love you today.
Oh, yes, he does.
I could never talk you out of that, right? Because you have an encounter with God. That it was already true scripturally, but you've had an encounter where he confirmed.
There were so many things that made me doubt his love for me. But in that moment, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt.
So many times, growing up in a preacher's home, carrying the weight of, I have to maintain their testimony. And your phrase that you used was, it's just not worth it to try to get in trouble. So I'll just stay in the lane. You might feel like God's reputation's on my back. I've got to not let people know I'm having doubts because it might make God look bad. So you hold yourself in bondage for an extra amount of years. And you think that maybe he loves me because I'm doing good, because I'm doing my part. I'm carrying this load. He's got to love me. And then you realize his love for me is not based on anything I do.
No.
It's just based on him, who he is. He chose to love us. Wow. Somebody's watching this today and they feel like nobody notices them and they're unloved. And your story brings hope and life to them. Yeah, they are loved. God loves them as much as he loves you or me, either one. Yeah. And maybe it's time for that person to look at God and say, are you real?
Yes.
Am I real with you? And just have that God moment, right?
Yes.
So since you were saved, how would you say your life has been different from all those years of being in church culture but unsaved?
It's been not without struggle, because grief is always going to be a struggle for me.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't come to church anymore because I have to. Mm-hmm. It's because I want to. I study my Bible now because I want to. I want that intimate relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
I've sought out people who will hold me accountable where before I didn't want anybody to tell me that I was not living my life right.
Yeah.
I've seen him work in just different ways in my life that nobody has any clue about.
So you've seen God do things in such a way that you knew it was him. It couldn't have been coincidence, couldn't have been somebody else. It was him.
It's been him.
Man, those are, I heard somebody call them God sightings, where I've sighted God's activity in my life. Those are the most joyful moments of life, to know God is at work in my life. So your attitude towards authority and accountability, all that changed.
All that changed.
And the greatest one of all is what you said, that I don't go to church because I have to, or I ought to, or I should.
Right.
I go because I want to.
I want to.
And then you said, I want to seek a personal relationship with Christ. I want to develop that. I want to be closer to him. These are not things unsaved people think about or say.
Right.
So new life has come. I love it. So I want to ask you another question. When you realized you weren't saved and you broke, was it hard for you to submit to baptism after you were saved? Because that's going to be the moment where everybody in your life is like, what? I thought you were already.
No, it was no problem for me. I was ready to do it again.
They that gladly received his word were baptized. Good. Great testimony. So if you don't mind, I'd like to circle back around. I have a vantage point of your life from the outside, and I've watched you go through loss and grief. And to me, you've experienced the worst of both scenarios of losing. So losing your mom, she was the first one that you lost, and that was very unexpected, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to tell your story. I'm going to have you tell.
So my mom went in on a Wednesday to have an outpatient procedure done. It was supposed to be a nerve block for pain in her back. And they kept her overnight for, I think because the surgery was so late. And they kept her all the next day. And then finally, we got to go home, I think, at 4 on that Thursday. On Friday, I went to work, and my dad called me and asked me what time I was coming home. And I was like, well, I need to run an errand. I'll be home after that. And when I got home, my mom was laying on the couch, and I got in her face, and I said, Mom, you need to wake up. And I, to this day, believe she breathed her last breath in my face.
Wow.
But we called 911. They walked me through how to do CPR. They came, and I had to stay behind to answer the questions, and my dad went in the ambulance with her. So I got to the hospital, and we were in a room with a chaplain, and I knew at that point that it was going to be bad. And the doctor came in and told us they couldn't get her heart started.
Yeah.
Again. And I'll never forget, my dad put his hand on my shoulder and said, you need to call the pastor. Those were his first words. So Pastor Archie was the first call that I made before I called my family.
Yeah.
And I sat down to my dad. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, that's hard.
And that took us on a 6-year journey of my dad never got over it.
Yeah.
He never got past it. And it was a tough walk.
So they had been married for
54 years, I think, at that point.
Beautiful. I remember getting the call and flying to the hospital. And I don't know if Brother Archie had already come and gone, or
he was not. He was in California, I think.
Okay, he probably called me,
and
I flew up there. When I got to the hospital, you had already come out of the hospital. You and your dad were walking to your car, and I caught you in the parking deck.
Yes.
And I just remember you looking numb, both of you, and I was too. I was shocked because I was in the pre-op room to have prayer with you before.
Yes. You and my mom were laughing and cutting up.
Yeah, because your dad, he was making us laugh, but I just felt so connected to the whole story because of that, and I had no words. Nothing I said could help.
Right.
It just was like shock and
yeah.
And the unexpected nature of it. You go in for just a little procedure, and then it turns into this was just wow, it changes everything. So then for 6 years you watched him struggle.
Yes.
And watched him grieve, and
he started having TIA attacks, which are precursors to strokes.
Yeah.
And that started him, I guess, on his path of a dementia.
Yeah.
Because that was eventually his diagnosis.
Do you remember how long he lived with that diagnosis?
Um, it was probably a year. I think it started 2 years after my mom passed away, because the first one was we were headed to Alabama for my uncle's funeral, and my dad drove us, but talked gibberish the whole time we were gone, and I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I took him to the doctor, and he told me what the diagnosis was, and he said if this ever happens again, take him to the ER.
Yeah.
And so they called me from his work one day and said, there's something wrong with your dad. He's not making any sense. So I had to take him to the ER, and they, across the speaker, said stroke victim.
Oh.
But I was thankful they got us in. Like, we didn't have to wait in the ER. And they did all the tests, and it was the same thing.
Yeah.
But that had altered something in his brain. And ever since, so he would start having memory issues, and it just went downhill from there.
Wow. So he had a diagnosis for a couple of years, but he maybe had signs of it before the diagnosis came. And bless your heart, you're taking care of him during that whole time, taking care of a brokenhearted man having some problems.
Yeah.
And then you took care of him for quite a while.
It was 6 years after.
So when I just look at your story, you had the trauma of losing your mom completely unexpected, who took her last breath in your face right there. You were together. And then your dad was a slower process over 6 years of just taking care of him until he couldn't go anymore. And you've had both ways. So did you go through any grief counseling after all that?
I did, but in between all that was my sister.
That's right.
So my sister started, I think it was August of 2017, started having issues, and she got put in the hospital and would be transferred from the hospital to the nursing home to hospital to rehab, back and forth. And unbeknownst to us, had gotten a bed sore. Oh. And so she had got sepsis. And in February of 2018, she passed away from that. So then my dad was 5 months later. And in between all that, I could not go to grief counseling because my dad oftentimes forgot that my mom was gone.
Yeah.
And so you would have to make up stories about where she was.
I remember you talking about having to try to think through what to tell him, and because he couldn't remember.
Right, because the very first time I ever told him, well, don't you remember? That was a terrible thing because he relived it and he didn't remember.
Yeah.
And off and on, he would ask me where she was, and I'd have to, well, she's out at the store, or she's out with friends, or she'll be home later, and then he would forget.
Well, I want to talk about that for a minute. The way that you cared for him, was there anything that your friends could do to help you during that time? What were the most encouraging things that happened?
There wasn't much people could do. I had some wonderful people that were my dad's friends would sit with him in the afternoons.
Okay.
So that I could work, and I didn't have to worry about him being by himself.
Yeah.
But other than that, there wasn't, because he didn't remember people. He oftentimes didn't remember me. So it was hard to bring somebody into our house.
That's good to that you share that from the front lines, because those of us who know somebody who's caring for someone with dementia, if you have a connection to them, go sit with them and give their family a break to be able to go and work.
That was the most. I had people come 4 days a week, so it was every afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was just people with a connection to my dad.
Did he seem to enjoy having them there?
Yes.
Okay.
He loved, because he would talk about, my dad had sundowners, so he oftentimes could remember his past, but he couldn't remember the present. And he always thought he lived in Alabama and we were visiting in Georgia.
Yeah.
So he would to talk about the old days with people.
So his heart, like the song says, is in Alabama.
Yes.
He's like, we're just visiting
Very
Georgia.
much so, yes.
And living over here. Yeah. I can just hear him saying it now. Well, you have a powerful testimony, and to have been through the loss of your parents in such extreme different ways, can you look back and see where the Lord was working in that?
Yes. Ron Brown, who I think you had on last.
He shared a story.
So he was one of the people that was hit with my dad.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had this just terrible neighbor who would come and want to know what was happening in my driveway. And he would get in the hospice nurse, like her car, and bang on her window and want to know what was happening. And everybody that came in my driveway, he would want to know, well, Ron Brown was able to talk to him. And he said, there's things happening behind the scenes that you don't know about. Like, God is working in this somehow. And I'm like, okay. So I literally started to pray at that point. Lord, I prayed for this to be short. However long it takes, if something's going to happen, then I'll keep going with this journey. Yeah. So he was working behind the scenes without me knowing. But it was, yeah.
So God was working in ways you couldn't see or know.
Yeah.
I think our lives are all like that. One day we'll stand before Him, and He'll begin to point out all the things He was doing that we didn't.
I had no idea.
I think it's only His grace that pulls the curtains back occasionally, lets us see, like, look what God did. That's a great testimony. I think there's a lot more we just can't see. He doesn't let us know. So your testimony is powerful. I appreciate. I know we're talking about things that are very sacred in your life, and there's things that you're saying that I really wasn't aware of either, walking kind of beside you as you're going through that. So you left working in the church world to work in the secular world. How's the secular world treating you?
It's different, very much so. I work from home now, so I don't have the personal connections that I had working at the church. But it's been interesting. It's been fun. I'm at my age learning new things, which is always good.
The church culture is you're in the middle of doing something and somebody comes in.
Yes.
I need a phone number. I need a copy. I need something.
Something.
And so you just get accustomed to interruptions. Interruptions become normal.
Yes.
Especially if you're at the front desk, right?
Yes. And talking to people all day becomes normal. And now sometimes I don't talk to people at all. So
you went from one extreme to the other. Yeah. So are you loving this more?
Yes.
Somehow I kind of thought you would enjoy that seclusion more than the other, and then you don't have a commute anymore.
I do not. I literally go from my bedroom to my other bedroom, and that's my commute.
Yeah. I'm tempted to start telling funny stories, but that's not the purpose of our time together today. I'll save that for later. But would you give any advice to somebody who's dealing with an aging parent and they're tired and they're just feel alone? You have any encouragement for somebody who's walking where you've already been?
Everybody's circumstances will be different, and everybody's journey will be different. But talk to people. Yeah. And it's find somebody that has been through what you've been through, because it's hard to talk to people who don't understand it. And I oftentimes tell people that when it comes to grief, do a grief share, but do it when you're ready. Yeah. Because you're not always ready right after. It took me after my dad died before I could do it. Yeah. And at that point, I had to do something to process all these feelings that I had.
So your dad passed 6 years after your mom, plus your sister passed between them. And so grief share for you came beyond 6 years.
Yes.
After, okay. Was it helpful when you went through?
Yes, it was very helpful. I would highly recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, when you're ready.
Yes, when you're ready.
Yeah. So you're saying don't isolate.
Don't.
Reach out and actually connect with somebody who understands, because everybody doesn't get it.
No. And people will tell you they understand because they've watched somebody go through it. Yeah. But until you've actually been through it yourself, you don't understand the journey.
Well, I appreciate that advice. The other thing that is beautiful to me in your story is that the brokenness came so deeply in your soul at the time of your salvation that it kind of all hit at one time. And salvation for you was not receiving a burden. It was being free of one forever. No more carrying that baggage of doubt. And I think I was, but what if I wasn't? And all of that. So, to the person who's watching this and they've been in a secret struggle about their eternal security, am I saved or not? They need to get that settled out today.
Yes. And for me, it was in that moment realizing that not only was I loved, I was not alone.
Yeah.
Because that had been my biggest struggle.
So you felt so alone.
Yes.
And your feelings, sometimes our feelings can make us feel like our feelings are true.
Right.
And truthfully, what God said was true. I've been there the whole time.
Right.
Do you think he was saying to you, I've been there the whole time, why haven't you turned to me?
Yes. I feel like, and I still to this day, when I pray, thank him for chasing me and for pursuing me and not giving up on me.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times he could.
You're going to tear up talking about it, aren't you? He's so good. When somebody's in love with God, in love with Christ, it's just all over them. And he is so good. We're only able to love him because he first loved us. He pursues us relentlessly until we respond.
Right. And looking at my life, knowing there were so many times he could have just quit on me.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He pursued me until I broke.
And, we look at that and they're like, man, you must be really special for God to pursue you like that. No, it's not because we're special. It's because he loves that hard.
Yes.
Right. There's a teaching that I was given in the training that I did on the Exchange Life that talks about suffering that leads to surrender.
Yes.
But between suffering and surrender is this little pit called brokenness. So brokenness in the Christian life to me was always about taking an old Coca-Cola bottle and smashing it to the asphalt and it breaking into 1,000,000 pieces or 1,000 or whatever. But brokenness is not that at all. Brokenness is simply coming to a point that says, I can't and I won't, but God, you can, will you?
Yes.
And he's like, I've been waiting. Like he told you, I've been waiting the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been here. And now I'm ready.
Yes.
Because you're ready.
And as hard as the journey was to get there, I don't know that I would have gotten there without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thankful for the journey that brought me to that point.
What a great statement. Thankful for the journey that brought me to that moment of surrender, brokenness, and then, the country song says Jesus took the wheel.
Yes.
He had it at that point. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story today. I can't thank you enough for, being willing to go back to those painful places in your life, because somebody's listening to this who needs to know they're not alone and that God is there and they can turn to him. And hopefully they'll seek your advice to reach out and not isolate, find somebody who gets it and connect with them. But thank you for coming today. Thank you for sharing your story. And I just pray God will use this to touch more lives.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Exchange Living Podcast. If this conversation encouraged you, make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you stream. And don't forget, you can also subscribe and watch on YouTube. Until next time, remember, real freedom in Christ begins when we exchange our life for his.